Welcome everyone to our third open research meeting, I think. And this is a meeting that's been organised by the International Committee on Open Phytolith Science, or for short, we call ourselves ICOPS. What these are is monthly online meetings about different types of open research topics. They have presentations and they have discussions. We're trying to get everyone to have more discussions, so it's more heavy on the discussions, I would say. So don't be afraid to ask questions, put your hand up, and you can, as I said, you can put questions in the chat if you don't want to actually verbally ask your question, or you can actually put your hand up and actually speak to the presenter. Just for the presenters' benefit, please can you make sure you keep yourself muted throughout so we don't have any background noise, because that can be quite disturbing for the speaker. So I'm just going through. If I aggressively mute you, then I mean no harm by that. I'm just trying to keep everyone quiet while Francesca will be speaking to us. If you do have an idea for a particular topic that you would like covered in this series, because we are planning to run throughout the whole of this year, and I'll tell you a bit later on about talks we've got coming up in June and July. But please do get in touch with us. We have an email address, which is on the slide now, but I'll also put it in the chat as well. Or maybe I can see Carla and Abraham are here, so maybe they from the committee, so maybe they will put it in the chat while I'm speaking. We also have a website where you can check out lots of different resources that we have put together. We ran a series of training things last year, I think. It might even have been the year before, but there's lots of training sessions that we have done. They're all recorded. They're linked from our website, or you can find, we've got a YouTube channel you can find them on as well. So today's talk, we have got the lovely Francesca, who is speaking to us from, as I said, the UK, London, UK. She's based at Kew Gardens, which I have to say is a wonderful place as a botanist to be based. And she is a Kew Research Fellow. And she is going to be talking about open publishing. I'm just going to go through to the next slide, just to talk a bit about our code of conduct. So we do have a code of conduct for all of our meetings. Essentially, we just want people to be kind to each other. So please do make sure that you respect other people when you are asking questions, when you're speaking to anyone in this room. And if you have any particular issues with what's happened today, then please do contact me, or also Celine's email address, who's another member of our committee, is on this particular slide. I'll share the slides in the chat as well, so you've got this information. And then just to advertise our upcoming meetings in June, we have got Annabella, who is going to talk to us about GBIF, which is one of the online platforms where you can put your data, your botanical data. And then in July, we're going to have Alan, who is coming. He's actually in charge of peer community in archaeology, which is a really great community-led and community-reviewed online platform for publishing. I don't want to say journal. It does actually have a journal, Peer in Community. It's just like a general journal, but it is a sort of online platform rather than a specific journal. But that will be really interesting, I think, as well, to get Alan to speak to us about that. Okay, that is all my slides, I think. So I'm just going to hand over now to, I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Okay.
There we are.
So I'm going to share myself.
Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, and thanks to Carla, who's been putting loads of links in the chat. That's really good.
So I guess, can you see the slide properly and everything?
It's just coming properly. There we are. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
Off you go.
So first of all, of course, I want to thank Emma for inviting me today to give this talk. So I thought that today the best thing I can do was sharing my experience on open access publishing. And before starting, I also wanted to give a sort of short overview about what I'm doing with Phytolith, just to have like then in mind what type of data, what type of things I'm sharing open access, or at least I'm trying. So I'm gonna start with a brief summary of my research. So before in Barcelona with Carla Lancelotti and Marco Madalla, and right now with Philippa Ryan and Kaspar Chater at the Key Royal Botanic Garden, what I'm basically trying to do is to reconstruct the evolution of agriculture with a special focus on drylands and with a special focus also on land use management, which means that I am mostly interested in trying to understand how was handled and how was managed agriculture more than like try to figure it out which type of crops or plants were in use in the past or where. For doing this, I am basically specialized in studying modern plants more than archaeological remains. And I always try to maintain my research extremely interdisciplinary, so moving between different disciplines, specifically craft physiology, where I'm looking for different type of, for example, stressors that can imply a sort of reactions in plant that then we can detect into archaeological context, but also with a special focus on ethnography, of course, which gave us a lot of information we can then process a model for archaeology, for example. And to maintain these two fields together, I always use phytoliths, which I think they are a fantastic bridge between the discipline because they are a trait, a morphological trait that responds to different environmental settings, but they are also amazing proxy in the hand of archaeologists, and we know we can retrieve from many contexts and can give us a lot of information. So that's the reason why I use phytoliths and the way I use them for research. So let's go into the topic of open access. So when Emma invited me to give this talk, I was reflecting a lot about what does it mean for me, open research and like make my research more open as possible. And because I was reflecting, I basically find out that, in my opinion, there's three main pillars that characterize an open research. This is, of course, an opinion I will be more than happy to have feedback about and discuss it. That somehow these three pillars are, at least for me, more important than publishing open access paper, which is, of course, important, but is not only the only thing we can do, I think, to make our research open. So I think that publishing open methods, open data, and use open sourced software is actually very important to make our research more reproducible, and because of this, also more open. And I also think that these three, let's say, pillars, columns that sustain open access research, in my opinion, are also three things that not only make possible to reproduce your research, but also make your research more easily trusted, which I know that it's something maybe that not comes to our mind pretty often, but I also think it's a very important thing to have in mind when we disseminate and when we publish our research. So through this talk, I'm gonna try to talk a little bit of how I try to implement each of these three pillars to my research. I mean, I hope you will enjoy and you have opinion. I will also try to give some I will try to give my opinion, but I'm open to feedback, of course, which I think is the most important part of making open access research. So receiving feedbacks back. So what did I do to make my research open? Well, first, my research like open method. Well, first of all, I tried to publish always a very fully detailed protocols, which means not only like have a detailed paragraph in the paper I was publishing, but also really try to describe step by step the protocols I was using in the lab, in the fieldwork, in the lab, during my microscopy sessions in case of phytolith counting, etc., etc. And I always try to accompany these protocols with a sort of summary of the rationale behind the choices I made in the lab. So if somebody else wanted to apply this protocol to their own samples that were different from mine, they could at least try to understand better how to accommodate the protocol to their own need. And for doing this, I decided to use this platform, which is called protocols.io, which is a completely open platform where you can upload your own protocols. It's actually pretty good in the sense that it's really easy to use, and it lets you like even implemented your protocols into different sections. So you can, let's say, upload one unique protocols for all of your like different work, for example, dividing into lab work, microscopy, etc., etc. It's very user-friendly platform. It's open access. It gives to your protocol a DOI, so you can share your protocols after during your like in your publication or etc., etc. So it's very really good for sharing the protocols to the community. And another feature I really like of protocols.io is that has two features that make really easy to interact with people, let's say, that read your protocols. First of all, there is this work for me button that people can like press if they think the protocol worked very well for them, which is useful for having feedbacks back, that so you can see people that are using the protocol and say, okay, it's good, it's actually working. And then there is another feature I like, so the possibility of leaving comments. So this is, for me, it's fundamental, and one of the most important principle of making open your methodology is receiving back feedback so you can improve your protocol and make it better. So it's a sort of win-win situation for everybody. And there, in protocols.io, there is the possibility of leaving comments. And then if you are the owner of the protocols, you can create a second version of the protocol by fork, like make a fork of your protocol. Indeed, this protocol I put here is actually the second version. The first one was commented. I think the comments were really smart and useful, so I modified the protocols according to the comments. And this, I think it's a good example of how making your research open is actually helping you to improve your methodology and make it better. So good. I really suggest everybody to use this platform. And I wanted to add also that these protocols.io is actually useful because oh my gosh, it's too late. I wanted to say another thing. Well, it will come to my mind later, maybe, what I wanted to say. Okay, never mind. Let's move on. I'm so sorry. I wanted to say, it was a smart thing, but I'm gonna go on. But yes, the protocols.io is actually really, yeah, that I wanted to say. So when you upload the protocols, is not published straight away to the open access. So it passed through a sort of check from the platform. So it's true you don't have a peer review through protocols, because it's supposed to arrive through people that comment the protocols, but it's actually checked by people. So there is a sort of check which make your protocol more trustable, of course. So because I think all of us are working on phytoliths, this is the reason why we are here. I was thinking that publishing open method in phytoliths means two main things. So publishing pictures and publishing descriptions of the morphotypes and reason for nomenclature. We were talking about this last month with in the last talk, I 100% agree that sharing the picture of the phytoliths is the most important thing. So even though people don't call the phytoliths the same way, it's important for like other people to recognize which type of cell are you calling like this or that. But I also find really important to share the descriptions. So the rationale behind your nomenclature choices, which I think it helps like to better understand the type of morphotypes you have in your research. And for this reason, I always try to publish a table of, usually I share table of pictures in Excel. I know it's not the most practical thing, but I think it's practical in the way it's really user friendly. So you have table with all the pictures. So it's really easy to access a table instead of a folder with many pictures. It's like they are all there. And for the same, under the same principle, I was also sharing like the descriptions of the morphotypes in Excel. Because I think it's easy to access and to be read. And usually I put this kind of description and stuff on the same Excel where I share also my data, so you can jump from one like sheet to the other to have like both of them easy accessible at the same time. So again, open methods, for me, it's also using the international code for phytolith nomenclature. I think we all agree that a code is a code because we share the code with the community. So we all use the same terminology to describe the same thing. I think this is pretty like the principle of using this code. The code of nomenclature, of course, has many principles that are well written and described in the paper itself to describe like the rationale behind using the code and how to implement it in your research, which I think it's good. But using the code, I understand can be sometimes a struggle. In the sense that for a person like me that is usually moving in a different discipline that is not always connected to taxonomy or paleoarchaeological topics. So for people that don't do research always related to, let's say, the past, but people that are working on modern plants, and so they are going into, like, for example, the physiology behind the formation of the phytoliths, the cell, the physiology of the cell before the phytoliths are formed. Usually sometimes can find difficult to use this code because the way the morphotypes are grouped are not really grouped according to these principles of modern plants, but they are directly targeting taxonomy. And I understand that this is a topic. This is a topic we should also, I think, maybe discuss a little bit more. I know that we are already trying to discuss this. Like I remember at the last IMPR, we were discussing this a lot, and we also came out with the idea of writing down an ontology, which I think would be a great idea. Because for a person like me that most of the time read paper from ecology, from crop physiology, where there's a lot of people studying phytoliths, there's a lot of people studying biosilica, but they are not using the code of nomenclature at all. It would be great to say, okay, there's an ontology, we are talking about the same things. We know that using a code is not always easy, but we can bring all the information together. So this is a thing we can also discuss, like in a couple of months, for example, at the EMPR that is coming, or we can discuss right now or later. It's a thing I would like to see implemented to implement the methodology and the way we make open science in phytoliths. And I also would like to bring out the perspective of maybe including some physiologists or ecologists in the committee, because I think they could bring very interesting and new perspective on the way we classify and give names to phytoliths from a completely different perspective, which I think, again, it's a way to make our research more open even to new disciplines. So to move on open data, so this is somehow like what I was trying to do to make my methodology as much open as possible, but I always also try to make the data accessible. So has also the table of phytoliths I was mentioning before, also like all my the data regarding every research I have always done are available open access on Zenodo. Zenodo is a European platform that allows you to put like lots of material, giving to this material even a DOI, which I mean, I think everybody knows Zenodo, but I also know that Zenodo is not the only options. The reason why I always use Zenodo is because, I don't know if somebody is interested to that, because it lets you open a lot of different files. So basically, if you look for me on Zenodo, you will have all the different like supplementary materials of all the papers and theses and etc. etc. And I think this is really useful because sometimes there's so many repositories that everything is like everywhere, and having just one repository is useful, especially for us that we move a lot like among institutions and stuff. So for me, Zenodo is a very good option, but of course there is many more. So I always put all the Excels and data regarding my research, especially the raw data when it's possible. We know that sometimes it's not possible to publish the raw data because maybe it's like machine data, but let's say try to share not only the results of analysis or like ratios of data manipulated somehow, but just put like the counts, for example, for the phytoliths. Amazing. I think they are really useful. If somebody else wants to use your research and have a look on the data, I think that even this data can be are really important, especially if somebody wants to use your data for their own research. And if you put in a repository, then they cite you and they can contact you. And I mean, again, it's a win-win situation for everybody. But of course, putting a data open access sometimes can be tricky because you have so many variables. And maybe, for example, for me, sometimes it's obvious what each variables means, but I know that like if you open one Excel on mine, there's like 2,000 different variables, some regarding phytoliths, some regarding like plant physiology, other regarding like the way I classify the samples, etc., etc. So navigate this Excel, I know, can be really difficult. So I always try to put a sort of metadata at the beginning of the Excel with a like brief explanation of each variable that you find in the different sheets after that, to make sure that each variable has been defined and has a meaning for everybody that can be understandable. And I think this is a good way to go to make basically make possible to people to reuse your data set, because otherwise sometimes it's really can be really difficult to navigate. So this is a thing I was doing. I know it's extremely time consuming, prepare this metadata, but it's also really useful if you want to like make possible to people to reuse their research. Apart from the data, of course, I was always try to share even the code I was using to make the analysis, even the most silly one, let's say, to color the background of a histogram or something like that, because I think it's really important, first, to avoid people efforts to reproduce your research, and second, because again, I think that if we put all the codes, then people can improve the code. And then it's, again, a win-win situation for everybody, because people can understand what you were doing and then maybe suggest you to move forward your research to implement the code as well, and to make it maybe better, or to suggest like new analysis or new way of seeing the things. And because of this, I was also like try to use open accessible software. Like in my case, like I was using R and R Studio, mostly because I was not doing a spatial analysis. So R, it's okay. I was also trying to do some training on Python, which I know is better for these kind of things. And I know that both RStudio or Python are really very easily shareable. The scripts are really like the language. It's a language everybody, I think, at this point in research can navigate. So I would really suggest to do the same, because I had very good feedback on my scripts, which was actually good. So yes, it's a thing. It was good for me, so I think it's gonna be good for everybody. So to bring all these things I was saying together, last year we were discussing about so we receive a lot of feedback from, like, I published a couple of papers about a methodology, like a sort of methodological paper about how to implement a model based on phytoliths to predict water availability in archaeological context. And I was receiving back a lot of feedbacks. So a lot of people were contacting me for asking me like small details about the research, or how to implement the model in their own research, if it was possible, if I could share the data, etc., etc. In my brain, it was pretty much everything clear through all the data set I was providing in the supplementary material and the codes, but I realized it was not, because people were asking me about. So thanks also like to Carla and Javi, that we were Javier Ruiz Perez, we were talking about this thing. Like we came out with the idea, which actually I would suggest to everybody because he's actually working, to write down like a user-friendly manual to implement the model suggested in the paper in a unique format that puts together all the paper, all the scripts, all the data sets. Again, I decided to write down this like user-friendly manual in Zenodo. Again, for the same reason I was saying before, because I always publish all my things in Zenodo, and because Zenodo is a really user-friendly platform, I think. So it was really easy, and it allows you to also provide links, to put the codes that are completely like like you can copy paste the code and then implement in your own RStudio, for example, dashboard. And this thing of writing down this guide was extremely useful, because it allows me to provide additional information about both the data and the methodology, that we know that sometimes in a paper we have like a couple of lines available for writing the methodology, and we don't have space to share this kind of content. So for example, we wrote together like a sort of paragraph of, you can apply the full model if, with a lot of conditions. Otherwise, we provide with options, like alternative options, how to reuse the data set or the scripts we provide below. And I think this is a very good way that brings together like how to publish open data and open methodology together. If you want to have more information or have a look on this manual, I can put the link after this talk on the chat. So yes, I wanted to add a couple of details about putting data on open access on open platforms. So in my case, I find out really useful to put data not only regarding like papers you are publishing, so supplementary material, etc., etc. But for example, I also put all of my thesis supporting material on Zenodo, divided into different chapters with and each chapter has its own metadata, figure, scripts and data itself. And I think this is really important because sometimes theses are so long and so full of material, it's really difficult to navigate all the different material. So if you have just one unique file like DOI with all the material from your thesis, it's really useful to then reuse it. And I also find this thing really useful because thesis sometimes, because they don't go like under the same like revision than the paper, sometimes it's really difficult to assess other people thesis material. But we all know that we invest so much time and so much work in a thesis, like why not share the material? Like we spend 4 years working on one topic. We have like huge amount of materials. Why not sharing even thesis material? Even like negative data or like small pilot you start during your thesis that maybe don't end it up into a paper, but you did this work and it was like kind of maybe useful for somebody else in the future. I think this is a good way of use this data and to give value to this data and this research. Another use of this open access platform like Zenodo I found interesting was to put the data from the fieldwork. In this case, as you can see, I didn't let the material to be completely open access. So the access is restricted to people that send me an email basically. And if I decide that, okay, we can share this material that has not been published yet, I can leave open the access. Otherwise, it's like sort of locked, of course, because it's material that has been collected during the fieldwork and is not yet published in a paper. But I think it's a really useful way to go for 2 reasons. The first reason is that you have, again, in one platform, in my case, Zenodo, but can be whatever, like another platform, you have all your data stored there, and it helps you to organize your data in a good way than to find it, and to also like to name the same variables in the same way, because you are putting everything in a sort of platform that push you to organize everything. But also, I think it's useful because sometimes, like when we do fieldworks, for example, sometimes we manage to arrive to do fieldwork because we are funded by some like institutions or companies or whatever. And sometimes they want to know how their money ended up to be like spent into a fieldwork, and publishing all the data during the fieldwork, even though they are not a paper yet, into a repository and pass them the link into this this repository, allows you to demonstrate that you did a lot of work and you spend your money during the fieldwork and you are working for future papers or future research, but it's already a thing that, okay, look, I did this and that, and it's accessible here. And I think it's a good strategy to go. So I wanted to share this as well. So to finish, I want to bring up some reflection, even though I was saying most of the things already during the presentation. So I almost always try to publish open access paper, but we know that sometimes it's really difficult because of the price of the of the articles itself, or there can be very many reasons. And sometimes we know that the open access publishing method system has some limits because of this. It's not really accessible to everybody, for example. So because of this, I was thinking about publishing the methodology and publishing the data and put everything on an open access repository can be even more have a bigger effect actually on your research, because it's really a way to get around the problem and allows you to spread and disseminate your research and have feedback back, which I think it's the main point of doing open access research. Then I was thinking that it was amazing for me to discover all these options of publishing open data, but it was amazing because it was thanks to conversation with people like Emma, like Carla, like Javier, like people that were like more aware than me at the time of how to do open research. So I was thinking that if I have to give this talk, I wanted to share my experience, and my experience passed through like being part of a community, which I think is the most important thing, because we can share methodology, we can share like way of doing things. We can also like, of course, have conversation. So I think that the project of Emma, she's like conducting, is offering so many different trainings and opportunities to learn something new. And I think it's a good like a starting point to then thinking about your research and how to implement into open access. And again, I want to thank all the people that collaborate with me and help me to make my research open, because I really think, again, it's a matter of community. Of course, like we want to open our research to make accessible to the community. So it's like a sort of circle. Yeah, and that's it. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's give Francesca a round of applause. That was amazing.
Thank
So
you.
well done, Francesca. What amazing work. Very inspiring, I think. And brilliant. Yeah. So if you have, I think you're just getting some claps and some smiley faces in the chat, which is very lovely. So we're going to open up to questions now. And oh, Daniela, do you want to go first?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hi, Fra. Thank you so much for the presentation. It came on a very good timing because I just deposited the thesis. And what I did, yes, and what I did, reminding the other talks that I watched from you guys, what I did was I put a link, generated on Zenodo a link of a repository for me to put everything that, like my tables, the pictures, everything I had of supplementary material that didn't really fit inside the thesis. But I really didn't put it there yet because I still have the defense, but I think I can edit this link, right? I mean, along the way, till the thesis is published, I can add more and...
Yes and no. Like you can edit the links, but you cannot change the upload material. If you want to change the material you upload, so not the descriptions and the link, but the material, you have to create a second version, which is completely okay. Like nothing happened. It's just change the DOI. It's like a sort of fork, so people in the dashboard will see just the second version, but the DOI is going to be different. So be careful with that. If you change the figure or the upload material.
Ah, okay. But if people access the DOI that is written on the thesis, they will see the new, they can see the new.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're gonna see that there is a second version.
Yeah,
very good, very good.
it's all linked together. So it doesn't really, you're completely right, Francesca. If you add you can change any of the metadata and it won't change the DOI. But if you add any files, new files, it will give you a new DOI link, but it's all connected. So like if they click the old link, it will actually come up with there's a new version of this for them to kind of click on very easily. So yeah, I don't worry too much about the DOIs that I've previously shared if I'm going to change something to have a new version, because it's so well connected now that it just gets highlighted. So if you do then publish something, publish papers from your PhD, then you can just publish the most recent version of your kind of collection of work. The only thing that I would say you need to be a little bit careful of is if you actually want to individually cite different parts of your kind of outputs, because when you do write things like a data paper, they do want your data itself to have its own DOI. So you'd have to actually separately put your data somewhere and get a specific DOI for that. And then like if you had some code, they might want that separately as well. So I tend to do like a big project space, like deposit of everything, and then I deposit things separately as well. So it kind of generally just makes stuff more findable, and I don't worry too much about all the different DOIs because they generally come back to you as a person anyway. So people, like Francesca said, everything that you have deposited yourself, Daniela, will all be clumped together. So people will just be able to find it because it's all kind of linked together.
Okay, and another question, Fran. You said that you put your pictures on an Excel file, because I didn't understand this properly. Because, for example, we have 10,000 pictures of phytoliths and lots of folders. But we publish on the paper or on the thesis only the pictures that really describe the morphotypes. We don't publish the 10,000. But did you put these 10,000 pictures on the repository, or what do we do with all these pictures we take on the microscope and everything we have? Should we share this, or?
So two things came to my mind. First, I don't know if you were on the talk of last month with Rosalie. She gave an amazing talk on how to use these pictures and accompanying the pictures with metadata and everything. So I never published the full folders like with all the pictures, but you can actually do it if you want. Like it's a thing you can do. The thing I was trying to do was like to put in the paper, for example, or in the thesis, like a small collections of morphotypes with a brief descriptions, and then put in Excel like additional table of phytoliths with more morphotypes to try to describe as much as possible all the diversity, all the gradient. Like let's say that I have like a cross, and crosses can be very different. There's many type of cross. So I'm gonna put in the paper or in the thesis just one or two type of crosses that I will say that I like find it in my slides, like let's say 4 type of crosses, and all the picture of the all 4 type of crosses are gonna describe and picture into the supplementary material, and there you can find like the different type of crosses and also like a sort of rationale why I divided into 4 different categories in the descriptions. And this is the reason why I said before, I think that not only the pictures, but also the descriptions of the morphotypes, it's really important because it helps you to understand why people like divide the things in a certain way and which are the features that are important in your like reasoning to divide, for example, one morphotype into 4 or 5, whatever categories they are. But I understand that publishing the full folders, which would be amazing, it's an issue because we took a lot of pictures, right? So I was trying to summarize the thing in this way. And then like publishing the raw data with the counts for me was like, okay, see, like these are the numbers. I'm not gonna give you picture for each like phytoliths I counted. I don't know if somebody else has a solution. We talk about this like open access repository to put all the pictures. I think that next week Carla was saying that we're gonna talk a
Next
little
month,
bit.
next month
Yes,
we've got a speaker from GBIF.
Yeah.
So that is a platform that does support particularly photos, because you definitely can put photos onto Zenodo, but they're not very, they're easy to download because you just click and it downloads everything for you. But actually to kind of browse the pictures, you know, to actually have it in a nice view, that doesn't work on Zenodo. So there are other platforms like Figshare is better for images if you want like a sort of general platform, but there are these ones like GBIF which are more specific to plants and kind of biodiversity that you can use. But yeah, pictures is a problem because of the size of the files as well. The files are usually, yeah.
I think they are a problem for like how do you make your picture to come back to you when somebody else is using the picture.
Yeah.
I know
I think
that.
Rosalie, I know Rosalie's here.
Yeah.
I think she said to put a watermark on it. And I
Yeah.
assume the watermark is for the credit of your crediting yourself. I don't know if Rosalie will speak up and say if that's where she put her watermark on there.
No,
But
I
think
remember that from like last
Yeah.
time.
There you are. Hello.
Hey.
Yes, I did put a watermark on it. But of course, I also have all the images without the watermark. And so I think it's a good way. It's a bit tricky because I always put like the watermark like on a fixed spot, but the phytoliths are sometimes in different
place.
corners. Yeah. So yes, but then if people really want to use the images for certain purposes, they can always just contact me. But I think in general the watermark should be fine because it's not on the phytoliths, because that would bother me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Can I
Raphael.
just add something regarding the images, because it's a bit interesting. So let's say you're using a accounting software, of course, which you can actually input the images, because it's a morphotype that's like already been described, and it's also for your counting purposes and not for publication purposes. So and you had that in your repository, and most likely because you already cited the morphotype, will that like be infringing upon any copyrights? Because you are just saying that like what I'm looking at is what someone else has looked at, what someone has already described, and you are actually basing your description on someone else's thing. For instance, like Twist has got his own classification, and then you crop those images for Twist, and then you look for those morphotypes like in your counting. So will that use of the image for personal use and not for publication, like, I mean, where's the like copyright things, like, I mean, like, because this seems to be a gray area, because a cat is always a cat despite the fact that someone imaged it. And like if you say it was a brown cat similar to that person, and you have it in the description of your like of your thesis or your paper, but you don't put the image of the cat because obviously that one is copyrighted, but you would have used it before as a reference. So I mean, like where's the balance between like tight watermarking and copyright infringement?
Yeah. Francesca, do you know that one, or do you want me to go?
I have something to say, but I'm pretty sure you are very very prepared on the topic, so I let you stay.
Yeah, so I mean, Abraham, if something is out there and it's published in a journal or it's on an online platform, it will have some sort of license on it. So if you use that material, so usually on Zenodo, it has the default license is a Creative Commons BY, so CC BY 4.0, which is a very open license, which allows you to basically do anything with the material on there, but you have to credit the person the creator, the person who created it. You obviously can choose more, they're called I think they're called copyleft licenses, more restrictive licenses. If you want to, you can put any license on the material on there. And then in journals, it's different. Mostly now it is quite open licenses for everything that's attached to a journal, but you just have to really check what licenses are on the things that you are using. I think if you're saying it's for personal use and you're is it essentially you're training something on somebody else's data? Is that what you're trying to do? Training like
Yes.
measuring software or something like that?
No, not exactly. Okay, say someone like you know, I think they will just go back to Francesca's analogy of, you know, she's looking at crosses. There's 8 different types of crosses, right? And before I start, like, then I find it before I start, then I make a checklist of those 8. Maybe I make a short list of 5 crosses which I'm using. Like in this case, I'm talking about like for personal use, not for publishing, right?
Hmm.
For instance, like if you're using like a Java program for counting, where you just want to have an image and then you just click at the image because it's you just like your personal use, and then that image is already has already been named by someone, which you can actually like reference in the text, but not use the image. So now the question I'm asking, so I mean I'm just asking because I had an interesting situation where I shared some my counting my modification of my counting software with a colleague, and then she said that I was using her images, right? And then like I protested that, like, I'm not publishing like your images, but your images are types that I'm using in my data collection, so that like if I have a hit on your things, it's already like something that has been described because she was described using the
Like a
nomenclature.
reference. It's basically
Like
a
a reference.
reference, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think that's okay as long as you're referencing them. That's the thing.
Yes.
If you're not reproducing so if you're not actually publishing their picture, you're not breaching the copyright, are you? You're
Yes.
essentially using that image that's out there. As long as you're crediting them for that in in the work you're
in the
doing.
case, like,
I can't see I can't really see a problem with that, to be honest. But I'm stressing I'm not a lawyer. So
no. But the
Yeah.
thing is, like, I mean, the thing that it concerned me because, like, this is a common problem with open science and making your data more accessible. Is that, like, okay, here is Twist's like system, and he calls this certain bilobate, and then there's Doris Barbonius has got her own like category, and then you work in a similar environment, and then you target those types, and then you just like have a snapshot for your own personal library. Of course, you still take these other thousands of images where you will see some
but
deviation.
I don't think you're breaching anything as long as you're not publishing those particular images. I think that's where you're because you can it's not they're not saying that you can't look at their images, are they? Like that they've already published them, they're already out there. So I can't see that they would illegally be able to say you can never look at my images because they've been published.
And I was
no, I'm just citing that as a challenge, because like when I was in like Shanghai, and we're just talking about this thing when I was presenting our post, that like someone was saying like this open access thing is they're hesitant to share their data.
But I think the thing is if you are going to publish your things open access, you have to understand what that actually means. It does mean that people can use your work. It means they can use your images if you have published them with open licenses. And I think maybe there's a misunderstanding about that. And that's where needs to be a little bit of education around like what the licenses actually mean that you're putting on there. Because as they said, like if you are using like Zenodo, you might not realize that the default licenses that are on there are the very most open licenses, which personally they're the ones I want to use, but some people might not realize what that actually means in terms of putting their work out there. Sorry, Francesca, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something exactly about this. Is like in Zenodo, for example, you can change the license. So if you're not okay with the most open one for some reason, or because your work was funded by institutions that whatever, you can change it. So you can change to your own needs the license to share the data. And this is one thing I wanted to add. The second thing is that I always cite, it's not only that you publish the descriptions of your morphotype, but I always cite every paper and every image I use to make this classification. So sometimes like I use several papers because these papers are accompanied with a lot of images. So I say like the classification has been made based on list of papers, and the nomenclature has been made based on not list of paper, because I usually use the code of nomenclature, but if you don't use it, you justify. So once you give them property rights of the images you were using for classification and then for nomenclature, I think you are okay. You are,
I
but
think so
again,
too. Yeah, you're giving the
again,
credit
I'm
to
not.
the creator. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's about that acknowledgement. You're acknowledging that you're kind of rightly giving them the credit for the work, because that's like the usual method of when we, you know, read papers, when we use data, we cite people, we cite the creator. That's the whole point of the kind of academic system, isn't it? That we credit people for the previous work that they've done and we build on it. I hope you've answered. But yeah, Carla put in the chat a really interesting
Yes.
point, and I find this a lot, that people do not understand that literally everything on the internet isn't free to use. Like you can't just take pictures that you get in a Google search and then actually use them in your publication. And I have actually seen that a lot as a reviewer and had to say, you know, where has this image come from? Because it's a very regular image you kind of see of a phytolith. And it's like, sometimes it's been my own image, I have to say. And I've said, no, you haven't credited me, or you haven't credited someone for that image. So you do have to make sure you credit people. You do have to make sure that the images you use, you're allowed to use. So they're not, they haven't got any sort of copyright that's restrictive on them, that you can never publish the images. So you do have to be careful with using other people's materials. I just wanted, we've only got 1 minute left. I just wanted to touch on 2 points finally with you, Francesca. One was because you kind of glossed over the fact that actually it sounds like you have very good computational skills actually. And you kind of glossed over and went, oh, everyone knows how to use R and Python these days. It's, you know, it's pretty easy. Because I have to say, from my experience, that is not the case with all PhD students or even postdocs now. The level of sort of computational skill, apart from in disciplines that are very computationally heavy in the sort of undergraduate degrees, it can, for everyone else, it tends to be quite low, the computational skill level. So how did you sort of progress in your career in terms of the skills to actually help you move towards open research?
So thank you for the question. It's actually a very interesting one because I'm not so good either.
You obviously
And
are better than you think.
but I implement a lot of my skills by copy pasting codes of other people and then starting from there. And only recently I start to write my own codes from scratch, which I think it's the reason why I also appreciate when a paper has its own code with that, because if you want to reproduce the research because you think, this is smart, I want to do the same on my own research, which is something I guess happen pretty often with everybody. It's nice to have the code already, so you start from this code and then you build up from that. And the reason why I start from other people codes, it's because if the codes it's well published, and this is a thing I also try to do with my own when I publish it, is to accompany the code with some lines of explanation, like this line is doing this line is doing that, and etc., even for the most basic things like changing the colors. So it's really like, this is the way I train myself, by copy pasting other people's codes, and then from there, like, try to modify things, which is not easy, but at least it's a starting point, I guess. I think that has, like, I think R language or Python language are languages, so it needs a little bit of training to and practice. It's a training. It would be lovely to have a Duolingo coding thing, to have like 5 minutes
on your
training
phone. I
on
haven't
your
seen that
phone
actually, but
every day.
there are lots
This
of
is an
courses out there
idea,
now.
a
Yeah,
business idea.
No, there probably is one out there, because there's loads of training actually out there, lots of training online. So I would, if you do want to learn those skills, then I would definitely go for it. Yes, also, I've been talking a lot about using AI to code, which is now called vibe coding, apparently. or prompt, its proper name is prompt engineering, but vibe coding is like a new kind of trendy word for it. And yeah, it's kind of similar to what Francesca is saying, is like taking someone else's code and kind of improving it. So I think there are pluses and minuses to it, because if you don't understand how to do it in the first place, you know, you can't actually then go ahead and edit it. So to actually make it
Yes.
do what you want, or you turn it into the whole thing into like a bit of a black box and not really understanding what the numbers are you're getting out, because
Or
you've got some random code or something.
you delete the wrong part and all it
Yes.
has nothing, it's actually working. And it's
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
But again, it could be a good starting point. It's another way of starting. And again, learning as well, because you can actually use it as you can use like ChatGPT as a learning tool, actually. So you can actually just kind of say, oh, I want to do this, and then you can say, can you explain this part to me? Why have you done it like that? And you can have a conversation with it.
Can I say one thing? Don't use
Yeah, then we'll have-
ChatGPT for coding reason, because I know people that say that is actually good. I have never had like a good answer from ChatGPT. It's always wrong, and then it's an AI, so you have to say no,
Yeah.
it's wrong because of this. So it's implementing the
yeah,
thing. But Carla, she's suggesting like I think we have AI now that can write code from your text prompt. Okay, I don't know what.
Well, you can use GitHub Copilot is one, which is pretty good, actually. There's lots of them.
okay.
Actually, Gemini is very good as well, which is the Google
Okay.
one, can be very good. But there
I
are
do-
other, I will advertise, there are many others that you can use.
Just Google, like from my experience, the best way to go is to copy paste the error or the line of code you want to the Google bar, and there would be options,
Lots of
many
answers.
options.
Yes, lots of answers going on there. Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, Francesca. We'll have to wrap up because we've had lots of questions and all the time has gone. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much, Francesca. I really enjoyed hearing your talk today. I think it was very inspirational for young researchers. So we'll get the videos online. And I apologize that our last talk, so Rosalie, I think, has gone, but I apologize to her that her talk is not online yet. I will make sure I get that done soon, and yours done, and both on our YouTube channel, so you can see both talks on there.